Wow. Thank you, Lisa, Rachel, Carson, Steve, and Alicia for sharing your stories today. Hearing your experiences gives us such important insight into what is and is not working about current treatments. Paulie?
Yes, Tim, it's very interesting to hear about these experiences with treatments and what some people shared today about side effects like the drowsiness, the weight gain, lack of motivation. I look forward to hearing more about people's experiences with treatments and their hopes for future treatments in the discussion that we're going to have this afternoon.
And we're now going to broaden that discussion with other members of the audience. Let's start with another series of polling questions. And if you were with us for the morning session, you can go back to that webpage. It's POLLEV.com/SCZPFDD. Again, and sorry to repeat, but in case anyone missed it, POLLEV.com/SCZPFDD. Very good.
So the first question we've got here is, are you or a loved one currently taking any of the following kinds of medications to manage your schizophrenia? Select all that apply, so you can have multiple responses here. And option A is oral antipsychotic medication.
And B is long-acting injectable antipsychotic medication.
Yeah. Other psychiatric medications such as antidepressants or
anxiolytics.
Thank you, anxiolytics. Yes.
And D is others not listed.
Yeah.
So take your choice. And remember, please answer these questions on behalf of the person for whom you care, not yourself if you're a caregiver. And this is for those living with schizophrenia or their caregivers.
Right, and again, select all that may apply to your situation. So yes, an oral antipsychotic medication, I mean, that's quite common. So we have 50% respondents there. And good to see over 10% and maybe going up on the other not listed. Mm-hmm.
Right, and just reminding those of you who are still entering, if you've just joined us and are a person living with schizophrenia or a caregiver, you can pull up the website on your phone or computer to answer questions in real time. And again, the reminder that caregivers respond as if on behalf of the person for whom you care. I'm giving you a second to go through that. So it looks like the vast minority of those on medications are oral antipsychotics.
A vast majority, yeah. We've got over 40%, they're almost half. And long-acting injectables, I mean, that's a relatively new thing, so good to see we've got almost 10% there.
And since we can have respondents saying all or several, it's quite possible people are on several kind of oral medications, antipsychotics, anxiolytics, antidepressants, and so forth. So hoping people have had enough time to respond here. What we're going to do is go to two more polling questions with a brief update after each one, and then we'll expand things and move to a Zoom panel to go along with the polling, and also phone and posting will be available. So we're going to hit all those words that begin with P again.
That's right.
All good.
More poetry. Just like the website pollev.com/SCZPFDD.
That's right. And we're about to bring in our live audience, and we're going to do two more of those polling questions. So let's go to the next one. And that is, do you or your loved one currently receive any of the following non-drug treatments? And select all that apply. A is inpatient psychiatric treatment.
B, substance use disorder treatment.
C is outpatient treatments such as therapy, counseling, or support groups.
D, housing support services.
E is employment or education support services.
And F, none of the above. So you or your loved one currently receiving any of the following non-drug treatments.
And it's gratifying to see such preponderance of responses with things such as support groups or counseling. Knowing that helping each other is an important part of conquering many diseases and learning best and worst things from those who are traveling a similar journey.
Yeah, definitely. And again, select as many as you feel apply to your situation. Yeah, definitely. Vast majority of the responses in the outpatient treatment.
Yeah, exactly. One might presume that about 90% is allowing for ambulatory, non-institutional type setting, which is quite different from 20 to 30 years ago. So this
that's
is
a good point.
incredibly encouraging.
Housing support services too, being over 10%.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Why don't we go to our next polling question then? We want to be sure we leave enough time for the many, many folks who want to comment out of our Zoom group as well as from phone or online for those of you feel most comfortable traveling the internet. So the third question for polling on this portion of the meeting is, Polly?
When thinking about new treatments for schizophrenia, what treatment effect would be most important to you or your loved one? So this is pick the one thing that stands out to you as most important. Option A is prevent delusions.
B is prevent hallucinations.
C, improve motivation or energy.
D, help you enjoy daily activities.
E, make it easier to maintain relationships.
F, make decision-making easier.
G, improve concentration and memory.
H is prevent involuntary movements.
I, reduce agitation or anxiety.
Very good, and we're seeing the concerns about those positive symptoms, delusions, and hallucinations as predominating. And on the flip side, motivation and energy boosts would be highly desirable for those who have deficiencies in that.
Yeah, like we heard in the first session, some of the folks talking about their side effects. So yes, improving motivation and energy. We've got, what, 20%? And then with the preventing delusions and preventing hallucinations together, that's 50%.
Yeah, and interestingly, some of these things might be seen as both benefits and risks, depending on the point from which the individual is coming. That is, if they're having delusions, to prevent them. So that's a very positive effectiveness thing. In others, it may be that they experience motivational or energy declines due to something they were on or other particular influences, maybe concurrent meds that have nothing to do with schizophrenia. So understanding the context is important.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially because in the second section here, we're talking about treatments and how treatments will affect you and your experience and the experience of your loved ones. If you're a caregiver.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And what we're going to be doing is taking things kind of in a sector approach. We'll talk about the upsides of treatments first, then any downsides that patients are experiencing, and then finally some thinking about trade-off decisions, so to help you anticipate what we're going to be coming to in our next section of this discussion. In fact, why don't we just move right along to it? So
Sounds good.
we're now going to bring in our live audience of patients and caregivers into the discussion. First, we're going to focus on currently available treatments, whether they are medical or non-medical. And if you'd like to share your treatment experiences, we encourage you to call in. You can call in at any point during the afternoon session at 1-703-844-3231. Again, that's 1-703-844-3231. And we'd love to hear about what your treatments that you've tried, what has worked, what hasn't, and why, to help all who are viewing understand your treatment experience. And you can also submit written comments just below the player in the comments form. So please make your voice heard in this conversation. and I'm very pleased to welcome a few members of our audience to Zoom to help us kick off this discussion. So Sandy, Nora, Davey, and Nicole, thank you so much for being with us today. And let's start with Sandy, telling us about yourself, and to ask each of you when you first speak to introduce yourself as you wish, where you're from in general, and it can be as broad as the Midwest and or East Overshoe, Iowa, where I'm nearby. And then to talk a little bit about the questions that we're bringing up. First the upsides, then the downsides, then the trade-offs. So Sandy, tell us about yourself and what you're doing to currently manage schizophrenia.
So my name is Sandy. I'm from Louisiana. I work for S&PAA as the Director of Community Engagement. I help coordinate our free support groups and answer the helpline. And in 1998, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, had a really hard time finding the right meds. In 2008, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and then in 2010, thanks to my therapist, who is also a nurse practitioner, I was put on clozapine, and along with other drugs that completely changed my life. I am currently going to graduate school to work on my master's as an academic advisor. I've been on disability since 2008, would love to get off it. But, you know, you have to take into consideration how to take care of yourself best. But like I said, the clozapine has made a really big difference for me, along with a couple of other medications. And then I also do a lot of therapy. Therapy helps too.
Very good. Thank you, Sandy. And we'll ask others to comment as well. Davey, can I call on you next?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hi everyone, my name is Davey. I'm glad to be part of the panel today, and I currently serve as part of the National Alliance on Mental Illnesses of the Palm Beach County affiliate in South Florida. I'm very excited to serve as sponsorship chair for NAMI Walks, which is our second largest fundraising event that enables our programs and services such as support groups, peer events, trainings, educational programs, and such to be free to the public and to our local community. And I also serve as an inner and voice presenter to share my story through the NAMI platform, what happened, what helped, and what's next, and to encourage hope and inspiration for many as I share my own journey and allow others to know that, you know, I've been there as well in many situations, and recovery is certainly possible. So about my diagnosis of schizophrenia, I was diagnosed in the middle of my junior year when I was at Vanderbilt in January 2019. And navigating that diagnosis as part of who I am, and certainly as a bit of an ambitious young adult professional, and then also navigating the pandemic shortly after that, understanding what it means to have a diagnosis, but also to try to have a career in addition to that. And so I've been able to join NAMI shortly after that, but a big portion of what made my recovery possible was a combination of medication management. I, like many others, have shifted through quite a few different medication changes before landing on my current combination, which I've been on for the better part of a year now, on clozapine and lithium. And so certainly that journey of those medications, and also the support and love from my family and friends and my support system, has enabled me to be where I am. And certainly the upside is being able to be a professional, and the downside is relatively minimal in that I have to sleep a few extra hours a day, like nine or 10 hours, which I think is a good cost. It's a cost I'm willing to pay in exchange for a relatively a life free of delusions and hallucinations, which I think is a goal for many within this diagnosis.
Very good. Thank you, Davey. And you know, it's very gratifying to hear stories when there were therapies in combination or otherwise that have worked and helped those to reclaim the normal activities of daily living. Nora, can we ask you to comment as well?
My name is Nora Valerian from Red Oak, Michigan. In 1985, excuse me, 1985, I was working in a company And there I started symptoms of schizophrenia, such as hearing voices that others don't hear, hallucinations, delusions. I was seeing things and I thought I was being poisoned, all the major symptoms of schizophrenia. I was put on the drug Mellaril and it didn't work. I gained 100 pounds and that's a lot of the symptoms of schizophrenia, and drugs make you gain weight and very tired. In 87, I had a major break also. And then my doctor put me on Prolixin because my cousin was on Prolixin. That didn't work at all. I was on so many different drugs that didn't work up until 1995, where I was February 95, I was put on Clozaril. Clozaril is a wonder drug. It took 1 year for me to be taking Clozaril. After a year, 1996, I've had no symptoms. It's the best drug there is. Also, I went to my first SA meeting, Schizophrenia Anonymous meeting, December of 87. And then in 95, I started getting involved with Schizophrenia Anonymous on a volunteer basis, and my self-esteem just skyrocketed. And I know that we were put on this earth to help others through our recoveries, through our recovery from schizophrenia. And we're doing the Lord's work. I was on the board of Psychiatric Rehabilitation Association. I was on the board of NAMI, and currently I am in the Mental Health Association of Michigan, and I'm a deacon for my church. And I tell everyone, we need our psych meds just like diabetics who need insulin. And there's so much good that's happened in my life since I started getting involved with SA on a volunteer basis. I go to Dreams Unlimited Clubhouse, and this is a psychosocial rehabilitation clubhouse. There we do clerical work or kitchen work, maintenance, and I'm very active in the advocacy work, and I'm on the board of deacons for my church. And with the right medication, the right doctors, the right therapists, psychiatrists, family, friends, we can be on the road to recovery. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Nora. That's awesome. And Tim, Nicole,
ahead.
before we go on to you, I hope it's okay if we take a call, because we have a call from Phyllis in northern New York. And so in a couple of seconds here, we're going to see if Phyllis is with us, and then we'll come back to you, Nicole, to comment on the same question. So Phyllis, are you there?
Hi, it's Phyllis.
Hi, Phyllis. Go ahead. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. I'm calling today representing my daughter, who is unable to speak for herself. She was diagnosed in 2001 at the age of 17 and missed graduating from high school that year. She was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, spent the summer, several months in a psychiatric hospital where they tried risperidol, Seroquel, Geodon, lithium, I'm not sure what else, but at a certain point they decided to put her on clozapine, and she started to do well. And she essentially did well for 21 years on clozapine. She graduated from high school the next year. She went to college. She had a career. She even started a small business and was doing extremely well, was independent, never once had a failing blood test or low ANC. But last November, because of the REMS agency change, her clozapine was abruptly stopped for 1 week, and she had a severe relapse of psychosis. She was hospitalized in a large medical center for weeks, and released in mid-December to a therapeutic community program that had helped her when she was first diagnosed. And she's still in that program 11 months later. She's doing better, but she's not back to where she was. The financial cost to our family is approaching $90,000 because we are sacrificing to make sure she gets the care that she needs. But more important is the human cost. She's still not regained that previous level of mental health and function. And she lost her business, her apartment, and her former life, all due to the REMS debacle, is what I'm calling it. The FDA's assertion that short interruptions in clozapine are easily managed using other medications is out of touch and wrong. Pharmacies should never be allowed to withhold an active prescription for an essential medication with no alternative. I want to know what we can do to stop these restrictions from happening, and I know there's action being taken now, but it needs to be more global.
Yes.
Why were these entities given more control over my daughter's life and health? And please fix these outdated REMS that are causing more problems than they solve and restricting the access to this medication that has been wonderful. And I'm hoping my son, whom I spoke with about earlier, who's incarcerated, might actually at some point get clozapine and be able to do it well.
Yes, Phyllis, thank you for calling us back, as you said that you would, and telling us that story too. That's very powerful, again. And yes, I think that your struggle is kind of becoming sort of a common one. So thank you for calling again, Phyllis. We appreciate that.
Yes, and I think we'll have additional discussion about individual medications later. We want to be sure we still concentrate on positive effects now. We respect that Phyllis's comments will go to the heart of the next question, which is about any complications that folks have experienced directly or indirectly.
And that's interesting that she talked about the success, and then there was the extreme negative, and now they're reaching that balance again. And that's exactly what we want to hear from people, yeah.
Yeah, and it does come back to the question of risks and benefits and how does one balance that for individuals, for populations. It's not an easy question.
Yeah.
And Nicole, can we come back to you as a caretaker, caregiver, and someone who can elaborate on that experience and the therapies and the journeys you've been through?
Sure. You ready for me now?
You bet.
Okay. All right. Well, actually, it was good timing because there was somebody out there making a lot of noise outside my window. So anyways, thank you for having me here today. I am Nicole. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area in Virginia. I am a caretaker. I have a 25-year-old daughter who unfortunately struggles with schizoaffective disorder. What I want you to know about my daughter is she graduated from college 3 years ago, top of her class from the University of Edinburgh, ready to light the world on fire. And all of a sudden, it was like this cloud started enveloping her. And within about 6 months of graduation, it started to make itself known through delusions. She has, unfortunately, when I brought her home back to Virginia, and our mental health care system here is broken on so many levels, which we won't get into today. But I will start with the fact that in the past year, when the delusions and the hallucinations and the voices have just taken over her world, to get her out of her room for 5 minutes to even eat dinner has been a spectacular win for the day. This is a girl who 3 years ago was going to light the world on fire, who now today can barely leave her room. She's gained easily 50 pounds. She shaved her head this summer because the voices told her to. She's been cutting herself because the voices told her to. This is my bright, beautiful, intelligent, articulate, amazing child that has been succumbed by this disease. This past year, I have called not 5, not 10, not 20, I've called 40 psychiatrists in the DC area to find someone who will prescribe clozapine. She's been through 3 antipsychotics this year alone. None of them touch her positive or even negative symptoms. And I have the doctor saying, well, let's just put her on an injectable because that'll solve the problem. I've had a doctor say to me, oh, well, you know what, this is probably as good as it's ever going to get. This is my bright, beautiful, wonderful child who cannot leave her room. I can't get her to a doctor's office for blood work, for an exam, for anything. She has anosognosia as well. She doesn't think she's sick. She thinks she is 2 thumbs up. I have lost my child to this disease, and I am desperate to get her on clozapine. 40 psychiatrists. I've called my insurance company. I've called her medical doctor to see if they know of anyone. I have called friends. I've gone through networks. I've gone through everybody. Right now, it appears the only way I can get her on this medication is if we potentially fly across the country and move to another state where there might be a doctor who can do this. I am a single mother. I have another child, and yet I'm going to do whatever it takes to get her on this medication, because right now I do not accept this is as good as it's going to get for my baby. And I am here to learn, and I'm here to share my story. But as a caregiver, it breaks my heart every single day to watch my child, who was just everything, who now can barely leave her room every day.
Wow, Nicole, thank you so much. I could tell right there, I mean, that's a lot of strength to tell that, and your composure. So, and yet still what we hear from a lot of people, right, Tim?
Indeed, and it's, how do we look at the overall benefits from any and all of the medications and talk about what some of the structural impediments may be, and also looking at the risks associated with the medical aspects. And it's that balance, again, for the individual and for populations, that there's so many uncertainties, it makes it really tough. So we appreciate and value what you've shared and understand it's been incredibly frustrating and life-altering. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to talk about, do we have other comments to bring up at this point about some of the favorable aspects of various therapeutic approaches?
Well, let's see here. How about we go back to Sandy? So Sandy, could you speak to if you previously used any different treatment approaches? What led you to change what you used to do into what's going on today?
Yes, so for me, for about 10 years, I bounced around with work, I bounced around with medications, I bounced around with side effects. It seemed like nothing would ever work. And like I mentioned, in 2008, I got diagnosed with schizophrenia instead of bipolar disorder. I think that was a big change. And then, going on the clozapine in 2010, made a really big difference. I think somebody had said earlier that if you miss a diagnosis on the recorded videos, if you even miss one, it completely messes you up. And I definitely understand that. And making sure I take my medications, do therapy. They have like a box. It's a monthly box where you can count out all your pills for the month. And that kind of helped me too, instead of relying on the weekly. So I didn't have to deal with the grueling task of counting out my medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. And other thoughts, comments? Yes, Davey.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that the medication is taken every single day. I wasn't on clozapine and lithium until May of 2021, and I've been on that since then. But before then, I was like many others, was cycling through different medication, and as a result of the side effects and the lack of tapering down on the delusions and hallucinations, I was also cycling in and out of inpatient treatment. And I think that the importance of taking the medication is taking it in and of itself every single day, but also knowing that even if I am better, like I have been better for better half of a year now and being able to serve with NAMI and volunteer leadership roles, that I still need to take it to keep on being better and to maintain that baseline regardless, because there's many people that in my life that I've spoken to who've taken the medication, gotten well, and then because they felt better, stopped the medication, and then immediately relapsed. So I think understanding that, but also being open to new approaches. And the most important part of medication is removing hallucinations and delusions, because those two elements create the most debilitating part of the illness, in that it creates a reality that you constantly have to question whether or not the experience is true or it's simply a byproduct of the mind and of the disease. And so removing both the psychosis and the hallucinations, some of the other side effects like the drowsiness and the weight gain and stuff are, I would say in my own experience, are relatively less important than removing the psychosis, which comes from the delusions and the hallucinations, because the debilitating part comes in with the questioning the nature of reality itself, which creates a lot of confusion and also a lot of heartache and confusion, frankly, for the individual as well as the family and any caregivers and within the immediate circle.
Yeah, excellent point.
Yeah, there's no question that numerous agents can be effective, but none of them can be effective if they're not taken. So, I mean, that creates challenges, especially when individuals do not have the insight. And, you know, that's part of the disease. It's really frustrating, I understand, for all of you, and with colleagues and others. So, you know, what we've heard about some of the positives is some good therapeutic journeys, that one solution is not right for all. And if we can think about how the various upsides and downsides can be balanced, it's key. So I think we'll pick up a little bit more on what Paulie had been talking about, and you may have a caller.
Yeah, we do actually. In a few seconds here, we'll go to Emma from Jacksonville, Florida. So, and then after that, I'd like to read a couple of the written comments that we've had from people too. We're getting a lot of good feedback from people out there that are outside the Zoom call. So thank you all for that. And please keep calling in and writing into us. So do we have Emma on the phone?
Yes, you do. Hello.
Hi, Emma. Thanks for joining us. Go right ahead.
Thanks. I wanted to share a little bit of my experience with medication as treatment and kind of how it's changed my life for the better. In 2015, I was diagnosed with schizoaffective bipolar type after a really rough first year of college. And it wasn't until my illness, some of the lack of insight cleared up, that I realized how much my life had changed since I had been in high school. Like someone who's on the Zoom call had shared, I was a very bright student. I'm somebody's daughter. I had a lot going for me in my future, and when my illness hit, my family kind of had to readjust their expectations for the trajectory of my life and how long it was going to take me to achieve my goals. Starting in 2015, I have been on several different antipsychotic and other psych medications, my very first being the classic antipsychotic haloperidol or Haldol. And I have also been on olanzapine, Abilify, Invega, Geodon, transdermal Sapris, Latuda, Seroquel, and I'm currently taking Vraylar, which is a newer drug on the market. And the difference in side effects and efficacy of the medication has been absolutely night and day. When I was on medications like Haldol, Seroquel, and olanzapine, I was very sedated. I gained a lot of weight. I struggled with dissociation and depersonalization because of how over-medicated I felt. And it made it hard for me to work and go to school. My parents encouraged me to maintain a part-time job, but there were some times because of medication, not necessarily because of my illness, that I was only able to work maybe 10 hours a week. And there were other times that I wasn't able to work at all. During my medication journey, I've been hospitalized twice. The first time was an involuntary hospitalization that during my stay there, I understood that I had had a psychotic break due to noncompliance with medication. And it really was a wake-up call that despite some of the side effects, I need the medication to have a functional life and have relationships with friends and people in my family. My second hospitalization was actually earlier this year in April, and I chose to admit myself because I felt like the olanzapine that I was on was no longer effective. or I was only having a partial response, and yet I was experiencing severe sedation and weight gain from that olanzapine, which is generic Zyprexa, which is known for weight gain in patients. And during my inpatient stay, a psychiatric nurse practitioner was able to switch me over to the Vraylar. And something that I learned through that process of getting my medications adjusted in the hospital was the importance of titrating and weaning down on medications properly and following the instructions of your doctor to make sure that you're not experiencing any side effects because you're increasing the dose of a medication too fast. And so I'm a huge advocate for educating patients on what the side effects of their medication can be, because speaking as someone who runs a DBSA support group for mood disorders in Jacksonville, and many of our members also have schizophrenia or schizoaffective or psychotic symptoms. We're often not told what the common side effects are going to be of a medication when we're put on it. We're just told to take it. And sometimes when you're dealing with anosognosia, it's really important to listen to the people that love you because they want what's best for you, our parents, our partners, our friends, our siblings. And with this new drug, the Vraylar, I experience less sedation. I take it in the morning, which is the very first drug I've ever taken, not before bed, because it doesn't make me as tired. And I never would have gotten to this place in my journey had I not advocated for myself and kept a journal while I've been on different medications, tracking my symptoms, tracking my mood, writing down anything that seems off, and reporting those information to my doctor and to my therapist.
Oh, that's interesting.
And another treatment. Yes?
Yeah, well, I was just going to comment briefly, Emma. It's interesting because you've talked about the positive and negatives, and yet it's almost like when we talk about you reaching a balance with your treatments, you're journaling. And that's something I don't know about our Zoom participants. I know some of my friends have commented on how journaling helps them. So, yeah, thank you very much for calling, Emma. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Very helpful. And bringing it back to our Zoom panelists as well, we've certainly heard about some positive effects here, and I think if we were able to poll things for everyone involved, I know Sandy and Nora both have comments pending here. Just to keep in perspective that there have been incredible success stories with many of the atypicals. Every individual is unique in terms of their response, and that's why more options are needed for benefit risk. So the development of those, there are folks who have failed any given therapy, and it's just finding that right one, as we've heard from several of you already. So just keeping that in perspective, not one right answer for all. Sounds very similar to what we see in the oncology space and otherwise. So tailored therapy. And Sandy, let me ask you to go first, and then Nora.
Right. So I just wanted to add, since Emma was talking about journaling, I just wanted to throw out there that there's a free app that S&PAA has partnered with another company. It's called Schizophrenia Health, and then the two words together, Storylines. And on this app, you can journal, you can track your symptoms, you can be reminded to take your medication. It's a wonderful app. I've been using it for many years. And that way, when you see your doctor, you have everything with you so that you can discuss things with the doctor. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah.
It's great help, kind of journaling plus.
Hey, maybe doctors could tell their patients, hey, look this app up,
Yeah.
Hope so. Can use any and all help in the practice setting, at least in my experience. So Nora, thank you, Sandy and Nora.
In 1995, I started being a group leader for Schizophrenia Alliance, and I've been doing that every week, sometimes 3 times a week, whatever. And I tell everyone that this is so important for recovery, taking your meds as prescribed. by the doctor, taking care of yourself. Also, there's a lot of side effects to the psychiatric drugs. And this is why cogentin was started. Cogentin is a very good side effect drug to be taken for side effects. I mean, weight gain, drooling, it's low energy. This is why we have to take cogentin with our psych meds.
Okay, thank you, Nora. I think in a minute, maybe we should go to another polling question. I do have a couple more written comments that I'd like to have us all to hear, some people who've written in. First of all, we've got Sarah from New Jersey. And Sarah says, out of all my symptoms, I'd say the ones that affect me the most are the voices. If the meds help to quiet them, I can feel them pinch and poke at me. And then we have Angela writing in from North Richland Hills, Texas. Even with treatment, breakthrough symptoms like hearing voices still remain. How do you deal with intrusive thoughts on a daily basis while having to work and try to maintain healthy relationships? And then there's also Linda from Austin, Texas, who says, the medications never fully helped my son and the side effects were atrocious, including massive weight gain, tardive dyskinesia, flat effect, cognitive decline, inability to stay awake during school hours and do his homework. And yeah, it's good to hear those comments from you all, because just like what Sandy and Nora were talking about, you know, taking what we've been talking about today with treatments on the big picture and still trying to draw, you know, like find commonalities and things like that. So again, keep those coming. And so, yeah, let's go on to the next polling question.
Yeah, let's do that. So thank you everyone for great discussion so far, especially our Zoom panel and also those who have called and volunteered internet comments. So we're going to do this next polling question to help us turn to another topic, treatment access, and we've already touched that to a great degree. Although the FDA's role is to review and approve medical products, and they're not involved in issues like insurance coverage, understanding general access challenges people with schizophrenia face, and understanding that can help us further determine what types of treatments will and won't be most effective for individuals and for groups. So let's turn to this. And again, it's pollev.com/SCZPFDD. That's a mouthful with no vowels. And this question is, have you or your loved one ever stopped taking a medication prescribed to treat your schizophrenia for any of the following reasons? Select all that apply. So again, all. An A is medication regimen was too complicated.
B, did not treat symptoms.
C, caused me or loved one to feel flat.
D, caused weight gain.
E, caused movement disorders such as tremor, stiffness, or agitation.
F, caused sexual problems.
G, prompted loss of menstrual period.
H, caused breast lactation.
I, other, not listed.
And J, no, have never stopped taking a medication for any of these reasons. And again, yes, select any of these options that you feel apply to you or your loved one who you care for.
Except J, of course, because those have been.
Well, I mean, yeah, we have some people picking J though. Says, yeah, that's wonderful to see. The 5% of the respondents so far have never stopped taking a medication for any of
all those
anything
reasons
that's listed there. Yeah.
So that's reassuring that some have remarkable success, but for the majority, it can be a challenging therapeutic journey. And as we've heard, I mean, I thought listening to all of your comments, especially from the panel, it sounded like climbing out Mount Everest barefooted.
Yeah.
Really tough climb. So understanding what can be done to bring additional options available that attack those positive and negative symptoms and reduce side effects would be highly desirable.
I wonder if, like hearing in our first Zoom panel, there was someone who had mentioned that it seemed like they were keeping on their medication no matter what, and that's good to hear about, because perhaps that's because they reached balance, going through positive and negative and then coming out with good balance in the end. So good to see that we have still respondents there, a significant enough number to show up there for people who've never stopped taking, but we've got did not treat symptoms as the highest one at 20%, and that's huge.
Yeah, and I think we'll just take a moment to digress to talk a little bit about the clozapine issue. It's interesting to see how many people have experienced these type of challenges in beginning and continuing therapy. Knowing this is a point of great interest for the schizophrenia community, let's take just a moment to talk about potential access challenges related to that particular agent. And I know folks will have comments here, but as background.
Nicole's already got her hand up.
Yep,
before we even
and we'll get right back. But clozapine is subject to what's known as a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, or REMS, which is set by FDA, requiring doctors and pharmacists to coordinate and provide reports on the use of this medication. So when a medication needs to have a REMS, it can make it more challenging in some cases for patients. And Nicole, we know you have experience with that, and welcome your comments here.
Oh,
No problem.
you're fine. Go ahead. Nope, you're fine.
And so I mentioned I've called 40 psychiatrists. Well, you know what I've also done? I've called labs. You know what I've also done? I've called just general practitioner doctors to help deal with potential side effects. I have called pharmacies. I work full time. And thank goodness my daughter has a caregiver. Not that I'm the most amazing human ever, but it's like, it is astronomically difficult. I live in a major metropolitan area. I can't find a doctor, lab, pharmacist, or general practitioner that will belly up to the bar and say, yes, I will help your daughter. Not one.
And that's disconcerting, thinking of the professional oaths many of us have taken. It's a burdensome challenge, and I'm not sure there's any great answer other than acknowledging a REMS is usually for, and in this case, definitely for a side effect that is detectable, potentially preventable, and increasingly serious. And so how do you counterbalance that with individuals who may be treatment refractory for other things? And again, that's recognizing for the people who are not treatment refractory, there's lots of other good answers there. So, we need solutions to new therapies to manage what are adverse events on successful other products. And we know that FDA has declared a reconsideration of this area, and it's suspending what they call enforcement discretion, or creating enforcement discretion, meaning that they're looking at how to make things more workable. It's a real dilemma. It's caught between a rock and a hard place, as many would say. Lots of rocks on the Everest climb.
Say, Nicole, is there any other medication besides the clozapine that you would say came close at all? Is there anything you could comment on that might have, or any treatment in general that may have come close? Any experience?
So I'm going to apologize. There's some monster noise outside my building. Whew, there we go. It's gone. I'm going to say no. As I said, my daughter currently is on 2 antipsychotics and a mood stabilizer, and she still has voices. She still has hallucinations. She still has delusions. She still can't leave her room. She has still gained the weight. She still can't work. She still can't see her friends. 2 antipsychotics simultaneously right now. And the doctor's solution is to make it injectable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And understanding that, there's the initial therapy population, and then those are treatment resistant who failed other things. And they're, very different needs and solutions. So understanding how to target that is key. That's not an excuse, just an observation again.
Yeah.
So as we think about that, and I'm conscious of we have one more polling question that we want to get to, which is, thankfully for all of you, the final polling question. And then we have some additional presentation that we'll want to be sure we hear. Any other thoughts or comments at this point before we go to that last comment or that last polling question? Great. So why don't we proceed, and if we can have up on the screen, we are now going to discuss what everyone hopes for community-wise in terms of new treatments. So once again, you have the polling address. Forgive me for saying it again, but pollev.com/SCZPFDD. And you can pull this up on your phone or computer in a new browser to answer this question. And if you're a caregiver, we remind you to please answer on behalf of the person for whom you care. And this question, take it away, Polly.
Have you or your loved one ever experienced any of the following challenges in accessing medications for schizophrenia? Select all that apply. And option A is a delay in getting medication because of the lack of clear diagnosis.
B is difficulty in finding a doctor who's able to prescribe the right medicine.
C, difficulty finding a pharmacy to fill a prescription my doctor was written.
D, having to choose between paying for my medications or other expenses.
E, switching insurance and no longer having coverage for my medication.
And F, have not experienced any challenges in accessing medicines.
And right off the bat there, we've got a third of the responses coming in as difficulty finding a doctor who's able to prescribe the right medication. So there we go, and that's been a little bit more of a common thread also in some of the people who've been speaking up about that and writing in.
Yeah, pretty interesting that it's like a high hurdle race, that there's a lot of barriers here. Difficulty in finding a doctor, even if you can, do you have the right pharmacy involvement, et cetera. So,
Well, there's a lot of medications available. Yeah.
and especially disturbing when you think about the trade-offs of the matters of you have to make some difficult choices with expenses, with other alternatives. It's challenging to manage overall.
Yeah, and we have a lot of other callers here waiting on the line.
Great.
So before we go back to the Zoom, keep filling out responding to the poll there. In a few seconds, we'll go to Angela in Odessa, Missouri. So again, the website is pollev.com/SCZPFDD. And Angela, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Angela. Welcome to the program. Go ahead and speak.
Okay. So my son, Michael Brisbane, had a video recording that you showed earlier in the program.
Oh.
And I would just like to address a comment that Dr. Fisher made at the beginning of the program when he said that there are currently no medications that address the negative symptoms or the cognitive deficits that occur in schizophrenia. And I would like to say that I would agree with that, with the exception of clozapine. As my son stated in his video, he took 13 other antipsychotics, unfortunately, before he was able to begin clozapine. And during that time, from the beginning of the onset of his illness until he started clozapine, his cognitive function declined tremendously. At 15, he was offered a full scholarship from Northwestern University. They wanted him to quit high school at his current high school and go to finish his high school on campus at Northwestern and also earn his engineering degree at the same time. We turned that down, but we noticed each year following that time that his SAT scores were declining. And by the time he was diagnosed with schizophrenia in his in the late year of 18, when he turned 18, sorry, I'm kind of stumbling here, his cognitive function had declined from being like a gifted, exceptionally intelligent person with a great future ahead of him to where he could not read hardly anymore. His vocabulary was greatly diminished, and his maturity level was about that of a toddler. And that was even after taking 13 other antipsychotics, which have all been mentioned today. All of the ones that have been listed off by the numerous speakers, my son took all of them, and he just wasn't getting better. And he actually was at the point where his doctors told us that he was not going to get better, just to give up hope, and that the safest route would be for him to be institutionalized long term. Safest for him and safest for us. And they were wrong. When we finally were able to get him on clozapine, he started improving. He's been on it now for 5 years, and he's slowly and steadily improved over those 5 years. His cognitive function and his has improved. Negative and positive symptoms both are dramatically better. He's in college full time now. He's attending a school 3.5 hours away from our home. He works 15 hours a week on campus. He serves as a board of director for NAMI of Greater Kansas City. He's in the theater program. He performs in the plays at school. Clozapine has been a miracle for him, and not only has it worked for him, but I know a lot of other people that it has addressed their cognitive decline, their negative symptoms, not just their positive symptoms. And statistically, it's way outperformed all other antipsychotics. So I really feel like the conversation needs to be about the medication that works the best.
Well,
in every clinical trial ever done, clozapine has dramatically outperformed every other medication. So it's like, I don't understand why the most effective medication is being held as a last resort, because people are losing brain function. They're losing brain cells while they're waiting.
I'm sure that you're not the only one thinking that. Yes, and that's so it's awesome that both your son and you are telling two different sides of this story, and yet there's a lot of similarities there. So thank you very much, Angela. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think to put this in perspective, it reminds me very, very much of past development in oncology. So with cancers, treatment-resistant cancers have an entirely different need for therapies because of failures, and the primary treatments are quite distinct from what is used for treatment related failures. And I think what we're talking about here, so that we don't overgeneralize, is that there are a select population of individuals who had not done well, and for them, those kind of expanded options need to be thought of. But making sure we think about other precedents and how we can learn from that, because we are focusing on what about new therapies, what about drug development, and maybe
future treatments.
Pardon me?
Future treatments.
Yes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, would someone, perhaps Davey or Sandy, would you like to comment on future treatments? Yeah, Davey, go ahead.
I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think future treatments should not only be affordable, because oftentimes the more effective ones tend to be hidden behind higher paywalls, but not only affordability, but also aim to reduce, like the two things I mentioned, the delusions and the hallucinations, primarily because of how much that occupies a person's mind space and their ability to function. And hopefully, there's many things that we can check off for the pros, but also the minimum, reduction in cognitive function. Because I know from my experience, before I was diagnosed, at least for a year or so before that, there was a definite, kind of looking back, a definite decline in my ability to function. Like when I graduated high school, I was top of my class. I was president of two different honor societies, National English Honor Society and Math Honor Society. I had founded and run my own origami club, and I was top of class. I entered Vanderbilt, and then very shortly after that, there's a notable decline in my functioning academically that later on was explained by the diagnosis, but at that time I didn't know. And certainly future medication should be have the benefit of those reducing hallucinations and delusions, but also not interfere with cognitive function, so that an individual can still pursue their passions, their hobbies, their interests, or their values, but do so in a way that they can also advocate for themselves, even in that position.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Davey. That's awesome. And I think Sandy might have wanted to say something, but Sandy, we're gonna take one other call if that's okay. Thank you. So in a few seconds here, we'll go to Thomas from Wheaton, Illinois. And again, if we have some time when we come back, if anyone else has comments for future treatments, that would be I think a great thing to talk more about. But
Yeah,
for
think
now,
about some concluding comment. If you could
Yeah.
wave a magic wand, what would you like to see in that new benefit-risk type relationship?
So let's see, do we have Thomas there with us?
Hello?
Hi, Thomas. Do you care to speak about like future treatments, not just what you're calling about, but how that might help with future
Sure.
treatments?
Sure. My name is Thomas. I'm schizoaffective. And I would say that the reducing the side effects, I currently take clozapine and I sleep about 12 hours a day because of it. However, it does produce a lot of higher functioning. I'm able to live alone. I drive, I work part-time, and my greatest hindrance is sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day. And so I would say that would be the biggest thing that I would say for the future is to try to reduce side effects.
Yeah. Yeah, to not have to sleep so much, right? Maybe at least just 8 hours a day.
You know,
Yes, I mean, some people think that it's a blessing, but you try to take 4 hours out of your day every day for the rest of your life. It's kind of, that's a stiff price to pay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. Appreciate you calling in with that.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, it strikes me anything that's powerful enough to affect a devastating disease like this is going to have a variety of side effects. So being able to modify those would be important for patient compliance. And thoughts from our panel, we have a few more minutes available, and we just welcome any closing comments any of you would like, magic wand or otherwise. Sandy?
Yeah, I just think if there was a way to come up with a more efficient method for figuring out which meds to take. I know we've talked a lot about clozapine, but we've also talked about newer drugs. And I know for me, it took me 10 years to find the right medication, and that's a long time. Thank you.
Well put, and it's a harrowing therapeutic journey we appreciate.
I'd like to thank everyone for having Sandy and Davey and Nicole and I have opportunity to speak. And it's been very nice. It's been really good. Sandy, Dave, Nicole, Jim,
Thank you.
Holly.
Yes, thank you all for being
Great.
here.
It's really good. Thanks.
Nicole, anything else to add?
I was just gonna suggest, and I don't know who would do this or how it could even happen, but there's such misinformation and there's so many providers out there that need a different education on so many levels about the medications, about the disease, for the love of God. I mean, just, you know, about what this thing is. And there is this misconception, and you've heard it a number of times, where providers have said to the person who is sick or to the caregiver, oh, this might be the best you can get. And I just, like, you would never say that to a cancer patient, right? Like, well, you're going to have cancer for the rest of your life. Like, no, like, that's just not acceptable. And I feel like it's the same. So I feel like education is one of those other things that I wish somehow there could be more of in this space.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Actually, you're all doing that right now.
That's right.
Because there are several hundred people online who are watching and listening to your comments. And the first step towards solution of a problem is always awareness, to understand what the characteristics are, and then how we can begin to collaborate to work through those kind of problems. So you are contributing to so much that way, and should feel very good about the contributions you've made.
Yes. And if you have anything else you'd like to add, most definitely, you all could write in comments too if you'd like. It's all being collected for the next 30 days, right?
Indeed, 30 days from today will be the deadline for filling it out. So with that,
I got a question.
yeah, Nora, final comment.
Yes.
Advocacy is very important, and everyone must advocate for mental illness. There's so much stigma out there. Joanne Verbanek, founder of Schizophrenia Anonymous, had said that stigma is harder than the illness whether it is a family member that does not understand.
Well put. We need to go from anonymous to unanimous in terms of support, I think.
This guy.
You're very good. So with that, I want to say thank you everyone who's contributed today through our panels, this panel especially. So Sandy, Nicole, Davey, Nora, wonderful. Thank you for sharing so much and to do that openly and with the intent of helping to raise all of our knowledge and awareness. And also those of you who are on live discussion, the calls, as well as the written remarks. If you were not able to get through on the phone and still have something that you'd like to share, remember, as Paulie just said, that you can send in written remarks for the next 30 days. You can do that in the form just below on the player, and we'll be incorporating all of this feedback into the Voice of the Patient report that will be published in a few months. So, before we wrap up, and thank you again to the Zoom panel, really super, and best wishes to you all.